On December 1st, 1943, a B-24 Liberator disappeared over the English Channel with 11 men aboard. No distress call, no wreckage, no bodies. For 78 years, families waited for answers that never came, until a fisherman's net dragged something up from the seafloor that should have stayed buried. The morning started like any other at RAF Wendling in Norfolk. Cold, gray, the kind of wet English cold that gets into your bones and stays there. The crew of Lady Be Good 2 stood in a loose circle near their bomber, breath fogging in the December air. They weren't rookies anymore, 6 missions deep, old enough to know fear, young enough to still believe they'd make it home. Lieutenant James Harmon was 23, pilot, farm kid from Iowa with steady hands and a photograph of a girl named Sarah tucked in his flight jacket. His co-pilot, Frank Davis, kept making jokes nobody laughed at. That's how you knew someone was scared. When the jokes got louder, the laughter got quieter. The briefing had been routine. Reconnaissance mission. Fly over occupied France, photograph German positions, come home. Simple. Clean. The kind of mission that didn't make your hands shake when you gripped the controls. But there was something in the air that morning. The other crews felt it too. The mechanics worked slower. The ground crew avoided eye contact. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew. Some flights just felt wrong from the start. They took off at 0847 hours. The B-24 climbed through thick cloud cover, its 4 engines roaring against the wind. Inside, the crew settled into their positions. Radio operator, navigator, bombardier, gunners in their turrets watching the sky through frosted glass. The plane smelled like oil and metal and the coffee someone had spilled 3 missions ago. Home. 20 minutes into the flight, they broke through the clouds. Sunlight hit the wings. Below them, the English Channel stretched out like hammered steel. Frank said something about the view. James nodded. Neither of them saw the German fighter until it was too late. The Messerschmitt came out of nowhere. 1 second, empty sky. The next, tracer rounds stitching across their right wing. The plane shuddered. Someone screamed over the intercom. James yanked the controls hard left, diving back into the cloud cover. The fighter followed. More bullets, the smell of smoke, then silence. When they emerged from the clouds, the German was gone. But something was wrong. The instruments flickered. The compass spun uselessly. Frank kept tapping the altimeter like that would fix it. The radio crackled with static, but no voices came through. They were alone. James made the call, turned back, returned to base. No arguments from the crew, but when he banked the plane around, nothing looked right. The coastline below didn't match their maps. The sun was in the wrong position. Frank checked the coordinates 3 times. They should have been over the channel. Instead, they were flying over open ocean, miles and miles of gray water in every direction. The navigator, Tommy Chen, crawled up from his station. His face said everything. They were lost. Completely, impossibly lost. The instruments were useless. The radio was dead, and their fuel gauge was dropping faster than it should. James kept the plane steady. That's what pilots do. When everything goes wrong, you keep the plane steady. He scanned the horizon for land, for ships, for anything. Nothing. Just water. The crew fell silent. Even Frank stopped making jokes. An hour passed. Then 2. The fuel light blinked red. They had maybe 30 minutes left. James tried the radio again. Static. He tried different frequencies. Nothing. It was like the rest of the world had vanished, and they were the only ones left in the sky. That's when Tommy saw it. A shape in the distance. Dark against the water. Land. They all saw it. An island. Small, rocky, but it was land. James pushed the engines, coaxing every last bit of speed from the dying plane. The island grew larger. They could see trees now, A beach, cliffs. They were 2 miles out when the engine started coughing. One by one, they died. The sudden silence was deafening. No roar, no vibration, just wind. James held the controls, gliding the massive bomber toward the beach. The crew braced. This was it. Crash landing or nothing. The plane hit the water 100 yards from shore. The impact threw everyone forward. Metal screamed. Water exploded through cracks in the fuselage. The B-24 was sinking fast. James shouted orders, "Get out! Get out now!" The crew scrambled through the hatches, jumping into freezing water, swimming toward the beach. James counted heads as they dragged themselves onto the sand. 10. He counted again. 10. Someone was missing. He turned back toward the plane, now half submerged. Frank grabbed his arm. The water was up to the cockpit. Whoever was still inside wasn't coming out. They stood on that beach, wet and shaking, staring at their plane as it slipped beneath the surface. And that's when they noticed. The island was wrong. The trees were wrong. Even the sky looked wrong. James pulled out his compass. The needle spun in wild circles. Frank checked his watch. It had stopped at the exact moment they hit the water. Tommy was the first to say it out loud. "Where are we?" Nobody had an answer, but they all felt it. The wrongness, the silence. This wasn't just any island. This was somewhere they were never supposed to be. And getting here had cost them something they hadn't realized yet.
They found the bunker 3 hours later, hidden in the cliffs, covered in moss and salt-stained concrete. German markings on the door, old markings, World War I old. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled like rust and something else, something sweet and rotten. The bunker had been a radio station. Equipment lined the walls, covered in dust, charts and maps yellowed with age, and in the center of the room, a logbook. James opened it carefully. The pages cracked. The last entry was dated November 1918, 25 years ago. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. They wrote about an island that appeared in the fog, a place where compasses failed and radios died, a place where men went in but never came out. Frank found the bodies in the back room. 3 German soldiers, still in uniform, slumped against the wall. No wounds, no blood. They looked like they'd just fallen asleep, except their watches had all stopped, and their skin was gray as stone. Tommy wanted to leave, right then, back to the beach, build a raft, anything. But James knew the truth. There was nowhere to go. The island had them, just like it had the Germans, just like it had whoever else stumbled into this cursed patch of ocean that existed outside the maps, outside of time. Days passed. They couldn't tell how many. The sun never seemed to set completely, just dim to a gray twilight before brightening again. Their watches had all stopped at different times. Hunger came and went in strange waves. Sleep felt like drowning, and every night they heard it. The sound of engines. Their engines. The B-24, flying overhead, circling the island. But when they looked up, the sky was empty. James tried to keep them focused, build shelter, find food, start a signal fire, but his crew was changing. Frank stopped talking altogether. Tommy kept writing in the German logbook, filling pages with coordinates that didn't exist. The others just stared at the horizon, waiting for rescue that would never come. On what might have been the 8th day, James walked to the cliffs where they'd first spotted the island. He looked out at the water, empty. Always empty. He pulled Sarah's photograph from his jacket. Her smile looked like a memory from someone else's life. He wondered if time was still moving normally back home, if his mother still set a place for him at Sunday dinner, if Sarah still waited. That's when he understood. The island wasn't a place. It was a moment, a crack in the world where things that shouldn't exist could slip through. The B-24 had flown into that crack, And now they were part of it, trapped in a loop, taking off forever, landing nowhere. He turned back toward the bunker. His crew was gathered outside, staring at the sky. James followed their gaze. There, through the clouds, metal glinted in the gray light. A plane. Their plane. Lady Be Good II, flying in perfect formation. He could see himself in the cockpit. Young, scared, still believing they'd make it home. The plane passed overhead and vanished into the clouds. James closed his eyes. He finally knew the truth. They had made it home. They were home. They'd been home since the moment they touched the water. This island was their home now, forever circling, forever landing, forever lost. In 2021, a fishing trawler pulled up a piece of wreckage off the coast of Dover, aluminum skin with part of a serial number still visible. The Royal Air Force investigated. The serial number matched Lady Be Good II. Lost December 1st, 1943, 78 years ago. But here's what they didn't tell the families. The metal wasn't corroded. The paint was fresh. And inside one of the torn sections, they found a photograph. A girl named Sarah, smiling at a camera. On the back, in handwriting that hadn't faded, someone had written, "We're still flying. We'll always be flying." The wreckage was cataloged and stored. The families were given closure. Case closed. But sometimes on foggy December mornings over the channel, pilots report seeing something strange. A B-24 Liberator flying just below the clouds. When they try to make radio contact, there's only static. When they try to follow, it vanishes, like it was never there at all. Some flights take off and never land. Some men go to war and never come home. Not because they died, but because they found something out there in the gray space between life and death, between mission and return. A place where lost things circle forever, waiting for an ending that will never come. The B-24 is still up there, still flying, still lost. And somewhere on an island that doesn't exist on any map, 11 men are still waiting for orders to take them home.